Let me ask you something powerful. Have you ever felt like your mind is running faster than your life? Like no matter how much you try to stay calm, focused, or confident, your thoughts keep pulling you in every direction. One moment you're motivated, the next you're doubting everything you know what you should do, but something inside you stops you from doing it. That's not life holding you back. That's your mind controlling you. See, the greatest battle you'll ever fight is not with other people. It's not with your boss, your past, or even your circumstances. It's the battle that happens between your ears, the silent war inside your own head. Because here's the truth. If you don't master your mind, it will master you. It will trap you in fear, feed you excuses, and convince you that you can't when you absolutely can. But if you learn to master it, if you take command of your focus, your emotions, your thoughts, you unlock a level of power that most people never experience, a power that can transform your confidence, your relationships, your success, and your life. So tonight, I want you to make a promise to yourself that for the next few minutes, you'll listen not just with your ears, but with your heart, your soul, and your hunger to grow. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't theory, it's transformation. It's the difference between living as a slave to your thoughts and becoming the master of your destiny. You have to understand something powerful about your mind. It was designed to serve you, not to rule you. But somewhere along the way, most people forget that. They start living as if their mind is the master and they are just the obedient servant. They wake up each day reacting to thoughts, to worries, to fears that have no real power except the power they give them. You see, your mind is an incredible tool. It's the most powerful instrument you'll ever own. But when you forget who's in charge, that tool can turn into your worst enemy. Think about it. How many times have you stopped yourself from taking action because your mind whispered, "What if you fail?" How many dreams have you buried because that inner voice said, "You're not ready yet," or "You're not good enough"? That voice, that endless commentary is not you. It's just the conditioning, the programming, the noise of a mind that has been allowed to run wild. The problem is most people never question it. They never stop and say, "A second, who's actually in control here?" The truth is, your mind is like a wild horse. It's strong, it's fast, it's full of energy. But if you don't learn to hold the reins, it will drag you wherever it wants to go. You'll spend your life reacting instead of creating, surviving instead of living. The moment you take the reins back, the moment you say, "I'm the one directing this," everything begins to shift. When you're the master, your mind becomes your ally. It becomes the engine that drives your focus, your discipline, your creativity. But when you let it lead, it becomes your prison guard, locking you inside loops of fear, doubt, and overthinking. That's why people wake up tired even after 8 hours of sleep. It's not their body that's exhausted. It's their mind. It's been running all night, worrying about what might go wrong, replaying what already did, predicting problems that don't even exist. And let's be honest, most people have trained their minds to work against them. They've rehearsed fear more than courage. They've practiced doubt more than belief. They've become experts at imagining the worst instead of visualizing the best. And whatever you rehearse most, your mind makes real. If you tell yourself every day that you can't, your mind will find proof. If you tell yourself you're not enough, your mind will create reasons to believe it. But when you begin to command your thoughts, when you start saying, "No, that's not my truth," the mind starts to serve a new master you. Mastery begins with a decision. You decide that your mind works for you. You decide that every thought that passes through you must earn its place. You decide that fear, doubt, and negativity no longer get free rent in your head. That's the moment you take back your power. Because here's the thing, your mind responds to authority. It needs leadership. And when you lead it with certainty, it follows. When you give it direction, it obeys. If you want to master your mind, you have to start by managing what you allow in. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant, it will grow. If you plant seeds of gratitude, of vision, of strength, that's what you'll harvest. But if you let weeds of fear and limitation grow unchecked, they'll choke out everything beautiful inside you. So guard your garden, choose your thoughts like you choose your food. Carefully, intentionally, consciously, you've got to train your mind the same way an athlete trains their body. You wouldn't expect to lift heavy weights without practice, right? It's the same with mental strength. Every day you condition it. You interrupt negative patterns. You replace destructive thoughts with empowering ones, better questions. Not why me, but what can I learn? Not what if I fly. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life because it directs the focus of your mind. And focus is everything. Ever you focus on expands. If you focus on problems, you'll find more problems. If you focus on possibility, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere. The mind follows your focus like a laser. The problem is most people never consciously aim it. They let distractions, emotions, and circumstances aim it for them. But when you become the master, you decide what deserves your attention. You choose where your energy flows. You choose what story to tell yourself about what's happening, and that story defines your experience of life. Some people spend years waiting for their mind to change before they take action. They think, once I feel confident, then I'll go for it. But that's backward. Confidence doesn't come before mastery. Mastery creates confidence. You take the action first. You push through the fear first. And that's how you train your mind to obey. Every time you choose courage over comfort, your mind learns who's in control. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, it starts trusting your leadership. The truth is, your mind isn't your enemy. It's your most loyal servant. It just needs clear direction and strong guidance. Feed it truth, and it will empower you. Feed it lies, and it will destroy you. You get to choose. You are the architect, the director, the master of your inner world. The moment you truly own that, the moment you stop waiting for the mind to behave and start commanding it with clarity and purpose, that's when you become unstoppable. Because when you master your mind, everything else in life begins to obey. Awareness is the beginning of all change. You can't transform what you don't first notice. You can't shift what you haven't yet recognized. Most people live their entire lives trapped inside their thoughts, never realizing that they are not their thoughts. They are the observer behind them. They are the awareness that notices those thoughts, the consciousness that can decide whether to believe them or not. And that is the difference between a life on autopilot and a life of mastery. Every breakthrough starts with awareness. Think about it. How can you fix a pattern you don't even see? How can you escape a prison if you don't realize you're locked inside one? The truth is, most people are asleep with their eyes open. They go through their day reacting, running, worrying, doing, but rarely seeing. They mistake motion for progress, activity for growth. They're constantly busy yet unaware of what's truly driving their behavior underneath. Your mind is always talking. It's like a constant radio station broadcasting fear, doubt, comparisons, old memories, and future worries. When you're unaware, you just keep listening. You take every thought as truth. But when awareness enters, you realize you can change the station. You can choose what frequency you want to tune into. Awareness gives you the remote control of your mind. It allows you to say, wait, the thought isn't serving me. I don't have to feed it. The first step is to start noticing your patterns, not judging, noticing. When you feel anxious, instead of drowning in it, pause and say, interesting, my mind is creating a story about what might go wrong. When you feel anger rising, become aware of the trigger. What story is your mind telling you in that moment? Awareness creates a space, a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap lies your freedom. That's where you stop reacting and start choosing. It's in that space that transformation begins. The moment you become aware of a thought, loses its automatic power. The moment you observe an emotion, you're no longer consumed by it. You move from being in the storm to watching the storm. The wind is still there, but it can't blow you away anymore. Awareness doesn't remove the waves. It teaches you how to surf them. Now, some people run from awareness because it can be uncomfortable. It forces you to see what you've been avoiding. The fear, the insecurity, the limiting beliefs you've been hiding behind business or distraction. That discomfort is a doorway. Awareness isn't about judging yourself. It's about meeting yourself. It's about saying, I see you. I see the part of me that's afraid, the part that's been hurt, part that's been pretending to be small. Because when you bring light to the darkness within, the darkness can't survive. Here's what's powerful when you start paying attention. You realize most of your suffering isn't happening in the world. It's happening in your mind. It's not what happens to you that causes pain. It's the meaning you attach to it. And that meaning comes from unconscious patterns. Awareness lets you interrupt that. You start asking, what story am I telling myself about this situation? Does that story empower me or weaken me? You begin to see that pain isn't a punishment. It's feedback. It's your mind saying, hey, something here needs awareness. You want to build the habit of catching yourself in real time. When your mind says, you can't do this, pause and ask, who said that? Is that my truth or my fear? When you notice your energy drop, ask, did my focus just go? When you catch yourself overthinking, ask, what's actually true right now in this moment? Because awareness always brings you back to the present. The present moment is the only place your power lies. You can't master your mind in the past. That's memory. You can't master it in the future. That's imagination. Mastery happens now in this breath and this awareness. The more aware you become, the more you start seeing patterns in others too. You begin to recognize that everyone is acting out of their own level of awareness, not because they're bad or broken, but because they're asleep to their own patterns. That realization brings compassion. It makes you less reactive, less judgmental. You stop taking things so personally because you understand that most people aren't attacking you. They're just unconsciously defending their own pain. Awareness isn't something you achieve once. It's a daily practice. You have to bring it into your routines. When you wake up, take a moment to check in. What's my emotional state right now? What's driving me throughout the day? Slow down enough to notice your inner dialogue. Before you react, breathe. Awareness grows stronger every time you use it. It's like strengthening a muscle. The more you practice being conscious, the more natural it becomes. And here's the beautiful part. When awareness expands, choice expands. Suddenly, you have options. You can choose peace over panic, gratitude over complaint, love over fear. You can choose your response instead of being ruled by reaction. You begin to live intentionally instead of accidentally. That's what mastery looks like, not controlling every thought, but being conscious of every choice. Remember, this awareness is power. The mind can only control you when you're unconscious. But once you see it, once you witness its patterns, loses its grip, you become the observer, not the prisoner. You step into the seat of the master, calm, clear, and in command. Because when you become aware, you reclaim the steering wheel of your life. Whatever you focus on, you feel. Whatever you give your attention to, you amplify. Your focus is like a magnifying glass. It doesn't just observe reality, it shapes it. The direction of your focus determines the direction of your life. Most people think circumstances create their emotions, but that's not true. It's not what happens to you that defines your experience. It's what you focus on about what happens. The same event can make one person stronger and another person broken. The difference is focus. See, your mind is a meaning-making machine. Every second it's processing thousands of bits of information, but it can only focus on a few. Whatever you lock on, it becomes your truth. Focus on what's missing, you'll always feel lack. Focus on what's wrong, and you'll always feel defeated. But focus on what you have, on what's possible, on what you can control. And suddenly you feel empowered. It's not magic, it's mindset. The meaning you assign comes directly from what you choose to focus on. Let's be honest, the world is full of noise. Every day you're bombarded with messages designed to grab your attention, headlines, opinions, fears, distractions. If you don't consciously direct your focus, something else will. The media will, your fears will, other people's negativity will. Focus is power, but only if you're the one in control of it. If you let the outside world decide what deserves your attention, you're handing over the steering wheel of your emotions. Have you ever noticed how two people can experience the exact same situation, but respond completely differently? Person gets stuck in traffic and loses their mind. The other turns on music, calls a loved one, or uses the time to think. Same situation, two completely different emotional worlds. Why? Because of focus. Focus is on what they can't control, the traffic. The other focuses on what they can control, their state, their perspective. And in that difference lies emotional freedom. The problem is, most people have trained their minds to focus on what's wrong. They've built the habit of scanning for problems instead of possibilities. It's a survival instinct. Your brain is wired to look for danger, to protect you. That wiring doesn't serve you in a world where most threats aren't physical, they're psychological. You can't grow while living in constant protection mode. You can't create from a place of fear. That's why you have to retrain your focus, to teach your mind to look for what empowers you instead of what drains you. It starts with awareness, with catching yourself in the moment. When you feel your energy drop, ask yourself, my focus right now? Am I focusing on something I can control or something I can't? Am I focused on what I have or what I've lost? On what's possible or what's missing? The mind loves to chase problems. When you redirect it towards solutions, you shift your entire emotional state. Your focus literally determines your vibration, your energy, your attitude, your strength. Focus isn't about ignoring reality. It's about deciding which part of reality you'll give power to. You can look at a storm and see destruction, or you can look at it and see renewal. You can look at a failure and see proof you're not enough, or you can see feedback, direction, new standard for who you're becoming. The event doesn't define you, your focus does. When you learn to direct your focus intentionally, your life starts to feel different, even if nothing on the outside has changed. You might still face challenges. You'll experience them with strength instead of struggle. You'll start noticing opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. You'll see growth where others see loss. Why? Because you've taken control of your perception. And perception is power. You can train this muscle every single day. Start small in the morning. Don't just scroll. Set your focus. Ask yourself, what do I want to feel today? What do I want to create? Deserves my attention. Throughout your day, when something throws you off balance, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? That shift in focus turns pain into purpose, chaos into clarity. One of the most powerful habits you can build is gratitude. Gratitude is focus in its highest form. It forces your mind to look for what's right instead of what's missing. When you start your day in gratitude, you're training your brain to notice abundance. And what you notice, you nurture. What you nurture grows. Gratitude is not denial, it's direction. It's you saying, I choose to see what's good even in the hard moments. That kind of focus makes you unshakable. Here's the truth, whatever you consistently focus on becomes your destiny. Focus on growth and you'll expand. Focus on fear and you'll shrink. Focus on your vision and your actions will align with it. Focus on your pain and you'll find more of it. You are the architect of your attention and your attention builds your reality. The most successful, filled people aren't the ones with the easiest lives. They're the ones who've mastered their focus. They've trained themselves to look beyond the noise, to see possibility in the impossible, to stay centered when everyone else is scattered. They don't deny problems, they just refuse to live inside them. They use focus as a weapon to carve a path forward, no matter what stands in their way. The mind will always try to wander. It will drift toward fear, toward distraction, what's urgent instead of what's important. But every time you bring it back, every time you say, no, this is what matters. This is where I'm going. You build strength. You become unbreakable. You become the master, not the servant. Because at the end of the day, your life is a reflection of what you choose to focus on. Every one of us lives by stories about who we are, what we can do, what we deserve, and what's possible for us. These stories are invisible scripts running the show behind the scenes of our lives. They shape how we think, how we feel, and how we act. And the truth is, most of those stories were never consciously chosen. They were handed to us by our parents, Culture, our failures, our past experiences, we didn't write them, we simply adopted them. But here's the powerful realization. The story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. If your story is, I'm not enough, your mind will find proof of it every single day. If your story is, I always mess things up, you'll unconsciously make decisions that fulfill that prophecy. The brain loves to be right. Even if it means being miserable, it will do everything it can to keep you consistent with the identity you believe is true. That's why change feels hard. Not because you can't change, because you're trying to build a new life on top of an old story. You see, the mind isn't just a collection of thoughts. It's a storyteller. It creates meaning out of everything that happens to you. You didn't just fail a test. Your mind says, I'm a failure. You didn't just lose a job. Your mind says, I'll never succeed. It's always turning moments into meanings. But when you become aware of the story, you realize you're not the story, you're the author. As the author, you can edit, you can rewrite. You can choose a new narrative that empowers you instead of one that limits you. The stories you tell yourself either imprison you or liberate you. As you repeat to yourself every day are shaping the walls or the windows of your mind. If your internal dialogue is full of self-criticism, self-doubt, or fear, it's like walking through life carrying a 100-pound backpack of beliefs that don't belong to you anymore. You have to set it down. You have to look at it and ask, who told me this was true? When did I decide to believe this about myself? And does it still serve me now? Because most of those beliefs were formed at a time when you didn't have the awareness or the strength you have today. There's a moment in life when you have to stop letting your past write your future. You have to take the pen back from your pain. You have to stop replaying the old chapters and start creating new ones. Maybe someone told you once that you weren't smart enough, strong enough, worthy enough. Maybe you failed. Your mind decided that failure defined you. But those are not facts. They're interpretations. And interpretations can be rewritten. You can decide right now that your past was not punishment, it was preparation. You can decide that every setback was setting you up for strength. That's how you reclaim your story. Here's what most people forget. Your story determines your state. When you tell a story of limitation, you feel powerless. When you tell a story of growth, you feel possibility. The moment you change your story, your emotions change. And when your emotions change, your actions follow. That's why transformation always begins with language. The language you use about yourself in your life. Words are not just sounds, they're signals to the brain. Every can't tells your mind to stop trying. Every I always fail closes the door on opportunity. But every I can, every I will, every I'm learning starts building new neural pathways that lead to a different outcome. You can't speak one story and live another. If you keep telling yourself you're stuck, your mind will never look for a way out. But the moment you start telling yourself, I'm growing, I'm evolving, I'm capable, your mind starts finding evidence to support that truth. Because whatever you consistently declare becomes your identity, and identity drives behavior. Think about it. Everything you do or don't do is a reflection of the story you believe about yourself. If you believe you're disciplined, act disciplined. If you believe you're lazy, you'll find ways to prove it. That's why change isn't just about willpower, it's about identity power. When you change your story, actions begin to align automatically with the new version of you. You don't have to fight for motivation. It becomes natural because you're acting in alignment with who you now believe yourself to be. You have to start living as the character of your new story before the evidence appears. You don't wait for results to feel worthy. You decide you're worthy, and the results follow. You don't wait for success to believe in yourself. You believe in yourself first, and that belief creates success. The story must come before the strategy, because your story determines what strategies you'll even see. And listen, you don't have to erase the old story. You can transform it. Every scar can become a symbol of strength. Every failure can become a lesson that built wisdom. Every heartbreak can become the reason you develop empathy. The story doesn't have to be pretty to be powerful, just has to be true. The truth that serves you, not the one that enslaves you. So take a moment and ask yourself, what story have I been telling about who I am, about what I deserve, about what's possible for me? And more importantly, who would I become if I told a different story? Because in the end, your story is your foundation, and your foundation shapes your destiny. The day you choose to rewrite your story is the day you begin to rewrite your life. Mastering your mind isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice. It's not something you do once when you're motivated and then forget about. It's something you must commit to daily, with discipline, with intention, with consistency. Because the truth is, your mind will always try to return to old patterns. It's designed to conserve energy, to take the path of least resistance. So if you don't train it, it will drift. If you don't lead it, it will lead you. Discipline is what keeps your mind in alignment with who you want to become, not who you used to be. Too many people think mental strength is just about positive thinking. It's about training your focus, your emotions, and your inner dialogue every single day until mastery becomes your default state. You wouldn't expect your body to stay strong if you stopped exercising, right? The same principle applies to your mind. If you stop challenging it, it weakens. If you stop feeding it with intention, it fills itself with noise. You can't wait for the world to give you peace. You create peace through disciplined practice. Every morning, your mind wakes up ready to serve one of two masters, fear or purpose. Discipline is the decision to choose purpose again and again, no matter how you feel. It's waking up and saying, lead my mind today. That means being deliberate about what you feed it, how you direct it, and what you allow it to dwell on. If you start your day scrolling through negativity, your mind absorbs chaos. But if you start it with gratitude, clarity, stillness, your mind absorbs power. Your morning routine is your mental training ground. It's where you strengthen the muscle of focus and commitment before the world starts pulling at you. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as meditation, learning to sit in silence and observe your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. It could be journaling, getting your thoughts out of your head so you can see them clearly. It could be visualizing not just what you want to achieve, but the kind of person you want to become. These are not small habits. They are daily acts of mental conditioning. Every time you practice, you're reminding your mind who's in charge. Discipline is freedom. Most people think discipline is restriction, but the opposite is true. Without discipline, your mind becomes a battlefield. With it, your mind becomes your ally. Discipline gives you the ability to do what you need to do, even when you don't feel like it. It separates the person who dreams of change from the person who lives it. Because emotion is temporary, but discipline is constant. The disciplined mind doesn't depend on motivation. It acts from commitment. There will be days when your thoughts are heavy, when fear whispers louder than faith, when your old patterns try to pull you back. That's when discipline matters most. It's easy to be strong when everything feels good. True mastery is staying grounded when the storm hits. It's catching yourself in the middle of negative thinking and saying, no, this is not who I am anymore. It's stopping the spiral before it takes you down. That's what training does. It builds that reflex. If you want to strengthen your mind, challenge it. Just like your muscles grow from resistance, your mind grows from facing discomfort. When you meditate, you're not escaping the noise. You're learning to remain centered within it. When you take a cold shower, push through a workout, or face a difficult conversation, you're teaching your mind that it can do hard things. You're teaching it that discomfort is not danger, it's growth. Every time you do something difficult on purpose, you're building the inner muscle of resilience. And remember, your body and mind are connected. Move your body and your state shifts. If you feel stuck mentally, get up, breathe deeply, move, stretch, walk, do something physical. Physiology changes psychology. A disciplined body helps create a disciplined mind. You can't think your way into strength while your body remains in weakness. Energy creates clarity, and clarity fuels mastery. One of the most powerful practices you can adopt is asking yourself better questions each day. When your mind starts spiraling into doubt or fear, ask, what else could this mean? Can I learn from this? How can I use this? These questions interrupt old patterns and redirect your focus towards solutions. Your brain will always find answers to the questions you ask most often. So discipline yourself to ask empowering ones. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not always exciting. It's showing up when no one's watching. It's doing the work when it's uncomfortable, boring, or inconvenient. But every act of discipline compounds. Each small victory builds confidence. Each consistent choice builds identity. One day you wake up and realize that what used to feel like effort now feels like who you are. That's the moment discipline transforms into freedom, when you no longer have to force yourself because mastery has become your natural state. This is the essence of mental mastery, consistent, conscious repetition, the daily decision to lead your mind instead of letting it wander, the constant return to purpose, no matter how many times it drifts. You won't always get it perfect, but you don't need perfection, you need persistence. Progress is born from practice. Strength is built from showing up again and again, especially when it's hardest to do so. Because in the end, the mind you discipline today becomes the life you live tomorrow. When you finally take control of your mind, you unlock something extraordinary, a force that's meant for more than just personal gain. Mastering your mind isn't about domination, it's about direction. It's about using the power you've developed not only to build your own life, but to elevate the lives of others. Because once you've learned how to control your inner world, you stop being a prisoner to circumstances and you start becoming a creator. You move from survival to service, from fear to freedom, from self-focus to contribution. The truth is, purpose of mastering your mind isn't just to think better thoughts or feel calmer inside. It's to use that inner strength as fuel to make an impact. When your mind is chaotic, everything around you reflects that chaos. When your mind becomes clear-centered and directed, you become a force of stability for others. You start influencing the environment instead of being influenced by it. People can feel it when someone has mastered their inner world. There's a calm in their presence, a certainty in their energy, a quiet strength that doesn't need to prove anything. That's what true power looks like. We live in a world where most people are controlled by external forces. The news, opinions, fear. When you master your mind, you stop being reactive to all that noise. You start operating from vision instead of reaction. You lead instead of follow. That's when you begin to realize the greatest gift you can give to others is your own stability, your own peace, your own growth. Because when you're grounded, you become a mirror that helps others see what's possible for them. You can't lift others when you're drowning in your own mental chaos. But when your mind is steady, your strength becomes contagious. Every person you meet is fighting a silent battle in their mind. Fear, doubt, insecurity, pressure. You've learned to master your own mind. You start recognizing that in others. You start showing empathy instead of judgment, patience instead of anger. You listen deeper. You respond instead of react. That's when mastery becomes leadership. Not leadership through authority, but through example. You become a living demonstration of what's possible when someone takes full ownership of their inner world. This is where purpose begins to take root, because true fulfillment doesn't come from what you get. It comes from what you give. Once your mind is disciplined and your emotions are aligned, contribution becomes natural. You start asking, how can I use what I've learned to serve others? Can my strength help someone else find theirs? When you live that way, every experience, even your pain, becomes meaningful. The things that once broke you become tools to help someone else heal. That's the ultimate level of mastery. Even your scars become instruments of service. You start realizing that the mind you've trained can be used as a weapon. Not to harm, but to protect. Not to control, but to empower. You can use it to cut through fear, through limitation, through the lies people tell themselves about what's possible. When you've learned to silence your own doubts, you become a voice of faith for others. When you've faced your own storms and stayed standing, you become a lighthouse for those lost in theirs. That's what happens when your mind serves a purpose greater than yourself. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean you stop growing. Mastery is not the end. It's the beginning of a new level of responsibility. Once you've gained clarity, you have the responsibility to share it. Once you've found peace, you have the responsibility to spread it. The mind you've strengthened is not meant to sit idle. It's meant to create, to lead, to build, to inspire. Every thought you've disciplined, every fear you've overcome, every habit you've built, all of it becomes raw material for contribution. When you live this way, your mind stops being a cage and becomes a compass. It points you toward purpose. You wake up with intention, not just to win the day for yourself, to create something meaningful for others. The power of a mastered mind is not just its calm, it's its clarity of direction. It knows where it's going. It knows why it's going there. That kind of clarity doesn't just move you, it moves the world around you. Imagine what would happen if more people lived this way. If instead of being trapped in self-doubt, they learned to direct their minds toward growth, gratitude, and service. Entire families would transform. Communities would change. The world would feel different. It always starts with one person deciding to master their mind, to break free from old patterns, and to live intentionally. When you become that person, you give permission for others to do the same. You become the spark that lights the fire. And that's the ultimate reward of mastering your mind, not just the peace it brings you, but the power it gives you to lift others. Because the goal isn't just to control your thoughts, it's to use them as a force for good. When your mind is disciplined, focused, and aligned with your purpose, you stop merely existing and start truly leading. Because in the end, mastering your mind isn't about conquering the world. It's about awakening the power within you to change it.